everybody. I'd like to welcome you today for the annual Soapbox final. My name is Barbara Nolan and I'm head of the European Commission representation here in Ireland. I'm particularly pleased to be able to greet you today at this important event organised by the Europe Direct Centres in Ireland. And I want in particular to thank the staff of the local government management agency, which is the host structure here in Ireland for the Europe Direct Centres, for organising the event today, and the centre managers for organising the events in their centres. The competition was divided into two age categories, one for those who are 16 and under, and one for the over 17s category. And I'm delighted to tell you that the regional winners will receive their prizes of iPads. If you have not yet received them, your local Europe Direct manager will be in touch with you shortly. The overall winner in each category today will get a prize of a €1,000 voucher. And I think that is a good prize, a generous prize. And I would like to also, I don't want to forget thanking the judges for their time sitting on the judging panel to decide today's winners. 2022, of course, was and is the European Year of Youth, a year dedicated to young people. We wanted to acknowledge the difficult circumstances that many young people found themselves in during the pandemic. And we want to continue with this Year of Youth. The objectives of the Year of Youth, of course, were to listen, engage, and promote concrete opportunities for young people. And we're going to continue this focus on young people with next year's European Year, which will be the European Year of Skills. Our focus has been to support young Europeans to get involved in European programmes and initiatives, and above all, to make their voices heard on issues that matter most to them, including European issues. So throughout the year, we have been actively promoting the many exciting opportunities that are on offer to young people, such as the Erasmus Plus programme, which is celebrating its 35th anniversary this year, Discover EU, the free Interrail pass for 18-year-olds, and volunteering opportunities under the European Solidarity Corps. And these are just a few of the opportunities that are available to young people in the European Union. We in the Commission representation here in Ireland, we also recently produced a new publication called All About Youth to showcase these initiatives. We invited young Irish people to contribute and share their personal experience of studying, working and travelling in the EU. And hopefully this will inspire other young people to follow in their footsteps. You can find this booklet on our website at www.euireland.ie. So for Europe Day 2022, we launched a new Voice Your Vision online interactive platform to encourage and empower young people to contribute their views and ideas on a range of issues that affect them, such as education, mental health, and inclusion. And we really want to support young people to have their say and become the drivers of change that they want to see in the future. The European Year of Youth has also seen the creation of a pool of young European journalists to give young people a voice as storytellers. And the group of young journalists, we had two from Ireland, Harry McCann and Alicia Wiegand, have been very active throughout the year, writing articles, creating videos and podcasts on themes of interest to them and their peers. The Commission has also run a series of policy dialogues with commissioners to enable young people to engage with policymakers at the highest level and influence decision-making. So as this European Year of Youth draws to a close and we move on to the European Year of Skills, we will continue to keep young people and youth issues high on the European agenda. We will also continue to listen closely to what young people have to say and to try to make your voices be central to our work. So it's all that's left for me to say now is to wish all the contestants the best of luck, and please have fun during today's soapbox. Bye-bye.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the National Soapbox Final for 2022. The topic of this year's competition is an important question. Is Europe listening to its young people? The regional events demonstrated a very high standard, and this topic attracted a lot of attention and interest. As regards the format of the soapbox competition, each contestant has 3 minutes to speak. And today we will be looking at the same video entry that was used for the regional events. Now, I'd like to give a short overview of the judging criteria. There are 2 categories of contestant for the national final: 16 years and under and 17 years and over. Each contestant will be assessed on the basis of the following criteria: content and evidence of preparation, presentation and delivery, including adherence to the time limit, structure and clarity, and fourth, overall effectiveness and impact of the presentation. Each of these 4 criterion should be given equal weight, and each contestant will be marked out of 25 for each criterion, and the total assessment comes to a maximum score of 100. 2 winners, 1 from each category, and 1 highly commended runner-up from each category will be identified by the judges. Now, I would like to introduce our 4 judges. Paula Butler is the chair of the judges, and she's Assistant Chief Executive in the Local Government Management Agency, the LGMA. Paula is responsible for local government strategy, research and communications in the LGMA. She leads the Library Development Unit, which is tasked with the delivery of the Public Library Strategy for 2022. Barbara Daly, our second judge, has been a voluntary youth worker with Foróige for 20 years. She has been serving as chairperson of the board of Foróige since September 2020. A mother of 3 adult sons who previously worked in library services with a local authority, she now works as accounts administrator in the private sector. Our third judge is Kieran Mangan. Kieran is from Navan and holds a Master of Library and Information Science from UCD. He started his career with Dublin Public Libraries and has worked in the Department of Education. He is County Librarian with Meath County Council since the year 2000. A keen local historian, Kieran has written on tobacco growing and copper mining in his native county of Meath. Our fourth and final judge is Margorzata Fido Davies. She is a talented linguist who speaks 6 languages fluently. Before moving to Ireland, Margorzata lived in Poland, the USA, Germany and France, where she studied, volunteered and worked for NGOs and international organisations. She worked as a leader and interpreter for international youth exchanges, and she also worked as a Polish language teacher. In Ireland, she has worked with the European Consumer Centre in Dublin, and since October 2003, she's been working as the Eurodesk Ireland coordinator with Lergus, the Irish National Agency for Erasmus Plus in adult education, school education, vocational education and training, and youth. In her current role, she provides information on European opportunities and programmes for young people and encourages them to become active European citizens. Now it is my honour to introduce the Minister for Rural and Community Development, Heather Humphreys, TD.
Hello everyone. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to speak to you today as you mark the 12th Europe Direct Soapbox competition final. This superb competition, led by the European Commission, is an annual highlight in the calendar. And I know that the subject of this year's competition has been keenly debated at a very high standard at the 7 regional finals. And so, congratulations to all on their achievement on reaching the national final, because you certainly have earned your place. Firstly, I want to acknowledge the Europe Direct Centres, who have once again done a phenomenal job of organising the regional events. These centres are a critical link between the European Commission and Irish citizens, providing individuals and communities in Ireland with access to a wide range of information about the EU. There are 7 centres located in public libraries around the country, all doing great work in their communities. And on that note, I want to mention our fantastic library service that is at the very centre of our communities. supporting reading, literacy and lifelong learning for people of all ages. The topic of this year's competition is inspired by the European Year of Youth 2022, which is all about shining a light on the importance of European youth in terms of building a better future. A future that is greener and more inclusive and digital. As always, I would encourage you all to continue to use your local library and to tell your friends and family, because there really is something there for everyone. So well done again to everyone who entered the competition via video this year. And I'm sure that the distinguished judges will have a very difficult task in choosing the overall winners. I will be watching and listening with great interest. Guramila Mahagav Golair.
Many thanks, Minister, for sharing your time and insights with us today. Without further ado, let's launch the competition. So today we're going to hear from 13 contestants in total, 7 from the 16 and under category and 6 from the 17 and over category. We'll start first with the 16 and under category, and we will hear from Leo Galvin from the Europe Direct Centre in Blanchardstown.
Is Europe listening to its young people? Hi, my name is Leo and I'm from Blanchardstown, and I'm going to try answer that question. Is Europe listening to its young people? I would say yes, most certainly. At the highest levels, you can see young people in there, in the European Parliament, in the Council of Europe, even getting involved with the European Commission. But I don't think it's the right question. I mean, yes, you can see young people being represented, even on the European Parliament's website. If you look at the most recent committees and policies, you can see them. Young people are in there, they're in the room, they're talking, they're having their say, they're speaking out, and they're saying what they want to say in the European Parliament. But I think the question should be, are young people in Europe being heard? In that case, I think it's a bit murkier. If you look at young people in Europe, you can see on the European level that we are being represented. There are different groups and agencies, and you can see, like, to use the Council of Europe, their youth department has adults and young people on the same level. They're operating in a system of co-management in their youth department where either can initiate and they'll both work on it. But I think it needs to be looked from a national level, because that's where decisions that most affect young people can be found. And in that case, I'd say not everywhere. Young people should be represented in all matters that affect them. Article 12 of UNCRC, but they're not always. And I think that's where it needs to change. In Europe, 25% of the population in all of Europe is under the age of 30. And in the European Parliament, the same number of MEPs named Martin and the same number are the same number of MEPs under the age of 30. And so we've got 25% of the European population being represented by 7 MEPs, which doesn't seem too right, at least not to me. But I think that's where it needs to change, is in our representatives and in how Europe listens to young people. Not from a position of, we want to hear from you, although that is amazing, but it should be from a position of, we need to hear from you. This is something that we need. This is something we are required to do. And I think that's what needs to change. We need to have more young people being represented. And there are young people who are interested in politics, but I think it's just hard to visualize being on that level because you can't see it. And as it's kind of been said before, if you can't see it, you can't be it. But yeah, thank you.
Many thanks for that speech, Leo. Very interesting to hear how Leo feels that young people are well represented in the institutions, but not necessarily well heard. Now we are going to hear from Kiva Park from the Europe Direct Centre in Letterkenny.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kiva Park, and today I'm here to talk to you about how Europe is indeed listening to its young people and using their help building a stable and promising future, not only for ourselves, but for future generations to come. It is fitting to discuss this particular topic in 2022, as it happens to be the European Year of Youth. In a 2021 survey, our young people decided that they wanted to use this year to improve our education system and tackle the ongoing problem of climate change. The EU have promoted this year as shining a light on the importance of EU youth to build a better future, greener, more inclusive and digital. I wanted to figure out if these areas are being addressed and improved. The EU has stated that all EU citizens have the right to high quality and inclusive education and lifelong training. Unfortunately, the majority of students from disadvantaged backgrounds are underachieving. So to tackle this problem, the EU have created a programme called Reinforced Youth Guarantee. This ensures that people from the age of 15 to 29 have the opportunity to continue education, take up an apprentice or traineeship, or gain employment after being unemployed or left education for 4 months. This programme has helped over 24 million youth to stay in education and employment, thus improving their future. As we all know, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we were forced to work digitally from home. Recognising the fact that some students struggled with this transition, while some didn't even have the resources to adapt to this situation, the EU set out a new, renewed EU policy known as a Digital Education Action Plan in September 2020. Their aim was to provide basic knowledge and skills on using digital technology for learning for teachers and students. As digital technology has a serious impact on our lives, an effort must be made to ensure all backgrounds have the opportunity to use these resources, and this is hoped to be completed by 2027. Another major issue for our young people is the problem of climate change, and one of the biggest advocates for this problem is our 19-year-old Greta Thunberg. She has addressed the leaders of the world and has told them that the eyes of all the future generations are upon you, and if you choose to fail us, we will never forgive you. In June 2021, the EU passed a law that all EU countries must cut their emissions by 55% by 2030 and reach climate neutrality by 2050. Obviously, the financial cost of this will be colossal, so the EU have decided that 30% of EU expenditure will go into climate-related projects until 2027. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe that Europe is listening to its young people and taking into account the problems they have. The progress may be sometimes seen like little to none, but after all, Rome wasn't built in a day.
So Quiva mentioned the European Year of Youth and also 2 initiatives, and there was a very nice visual presentation in the background for us all to follow. Next, we'll move on to Lauren Doyle from the Europe Direct Centre in Clones.
Is Europe listening to its young people? Young people are often overlooked when it comes to coming up with political solutions. But in fact, when you are young, you have less to lose, and therefore would take bigger risks. You are hungry to strive in the right direction, which is forward. As Brian Egger, Secretary-General at ERT states, it is vital to understand the hopes and expectations of young people to further advance and improve the European project, as it is our future, our generation, and we want to fix it. The Eurobarometer survey was conducted back in 2019, and it was evident that 72% of young people's most common expectation for the 2022 European Year of Youth is for decision makers to listen more to their demands and act on them, and to support their personal, social and professional development. Europe have listened to our wish, and the EU have put in place policy dialogues between members of the colleges and young people are organised in the framework of the Year of Youth. They give a unique opportunity to young people to get direct access to decision makers and express face-to-face their vision and ideas on all policy areas. The principle of the European Year in Youth in 2022 was announced by the President of the Commission in her State of Union address in 2021. The aim of this event is to celebrate the generation that suffered most from the COVID-19 pandemic, to support the most vulnerable young people and to promote their opportunities offered to young people by the EU, with the idea of drawing inspiration from young people's ideas to strengthen the European project. Not only during the COVID-19 lockdown, but also during the migration crisis, young people decided to act as a community and as a whole. Large numbers of young people took to the streets to manifest solidarity and hospitality towards refugees coming to their countries. Young volunteers aided migrants and refugees and became welcoming buddies, helping them to rebuild their life in a new country. Volunteers organised living libraries to raise social awareness on migration and many other activities aiming at supporting the European Union not only listens to our needs, but also modern day problems our generation may face. Online technologies offer a great opportunity for children and young people to benefit from digital learning and to participate in public debate. However, children can also be especially vulnerable to modern technology. Adopted in 2010, the Audiovisual Media Services Directive ensures that minors are protected from content that may impair them, whether offered by traditional broadcasters or through on-demand services. In 2016, the Commission proposed revising the directive to include video sharing platforms when it comes to tackling hate speech and protecting minors from content that may be seriously harmful to them. A major problem we face today, in which we would like to see more act upon, is climate change. As Greta Thunberg said, there's simply not enough time for us to wait and grow up and become the ones in charge. So we have to use our voices now and try and change the future for the better. It is for these reasons as to why I believe that Europe is listening to young people and are trying their best to meet our needs and expectations for the future. Thank you.
Many thanks for that, Lauren. I very much liked how you cited climate change as an area where progress is being made. Next, we're going to hear from Hannah Murphy from the Europe Direct Centre in Portlaoise.
Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen and adjudicators. Today I will be proposing the motion that Europe is listening to its young people. Firstly, we should analyse the given motion and ask ourselves, what age range is regarded as young? Well, the United Nations regards young as those persons aged between 14 and 24. According to Europe.eu, there are 61 million people representing this age range in Europe today. Let's look at that in more detail. 61 million is around 12 times the population of Ireland. In my opinion, this is a huge group of people who have as much right to speak their mind as their mothers, fathers and grandparents do. Europe is in strong agreement with me in terms of this, as it proves in many ways. For example, this year has been appointed the European Year of Youth, in which the young people of Europe unite to speak their minds on a variety of topics and issues surrounding our society. The EU declared 2022 as European Year of Youth as a recognition of the sacrifices that young people like myself made during the pandemic. In my opinion, it is an important milestone in acknowledging young people's expectations, rights and needs. Designating 2022 as a year focused on young people meant that increased efforts were made to include youth priorities in EU policy areas. Sabine Verheyen, a German politician who has served for 14 years in the EU Parliament, said that this year will lay the foundation for giving people a stronger platform to make their voices heard. Members of the EU would not have gone ahead with this initiative if they were not prepared to listen to their youth. The European Union has included conferences as is promoting youth participation in policy making. While an opposing view may regard the European Year of Youth as just another way to satisfy the young people of Europe, I disagree. I think that it is an extremely innovative way to truly hear what young people on our continent genuinely think about their home. Because Europe is listening to its youth, people feel like their thoughts and ideas are actually being heard. Events like this one here, which are held by Europe Direct, help youth be heard and listened to. The Europe Direct initiative launched in Ireland in 2005. Listen to the name, Europe Direct. Of course we're being listened to. Through this debating competition was formed. Why would this competition even exist today if Europe wasn't willing to listen to its young people and allow them to speak their minds? We are the future, the same as our children will be in years to come. I truly believe that Europe is listening to its young people. It is using our ideas and concepts regarding society issues and further using them to improve the world that we live in for the better. Propose the motion. Thank you.
Many thanks for that presentation, Hannah. Nice to hear you mention European Year of Youth and promoting youth participation in policy making. Moving on now, we will listen to Colleen Naughton from the Europe Direct Centre in Ballinasloe.
Hi, my name is Colleen, and I think that Europe is listening to its young people when they get the chance to. Obviously, most kids have the words and loads of great ideas in their heads, but some just can't say those ideas. For example, most kids choose to be silent or very quiet, especially when they are talking to strangers and not their family. Some kids are not listened to and cannot make themselves heard, or they are not able to find the words to say what they need. There's a definite power in being able to speak, to use words effectively, to get meaning across and to be understood. In this world, we need to be heard, and often we have to speak up and speak out. For example, most of the students in our school have found our voices because of all the great opportunities the school has given us to share our thoughts. A past pupil in our school, Caitlin, was chosen for the National Youth Assembly, which is an assembly for 10 to 17-year-olds to find solutions in Ireland for climate change. The assembly was live on RTE News Now on the 15th of November 2020. 157 students have been selected for this event. She had to apply by recording a video and filling an application form. She then had a phone interview from RTE before she was finally chosen. She was then chosen out of the 157 children to do the opening speech on environment. That is only one of the many examples on how the school pushes us to do our best. We have done so many projects in the past. One of our more recent projects was installing solar panels in our school with partnership with Microsoft Ireland, SSE Electricity and Activate. Since the panels have been installed, they have generated 42% of our electricity in the school. One of our more successful projects is the Green Dot project. During our work with the Climate Action Project, we created surveys to collect data about this problem. In a survey of adults, we found that 72% didn't know what the green dot was, and 84% thought it was the recycling symbol. We also surveyed products in Irish supermarkets, and 30% of the items had the green dot on it, and it couldn't be recycled. This year, we are working on banning plastic in the fruit and veg aisle. In my personal opinion, yes, Europe is listening to its younger generation. Greta Thunberg. I'm sure most people have heard of her, but just in case, Greta Thunberg is a Swedish environmental activist who is known for challenging the world leaders to take immediate action on climate action. Everyone listens to her speeches, but is everyone really listening? Because if they all were, there should be change. Thank you for listening to my soapbox.
Many thanks for that, Colleen. I very much liked how you gave us an example of partnership with the private sector to address climate change issues. Next, we'll hear from Shauna Walsh from the Europe Direct Centre in Sligo.
Driving a car, undertaking higher education, entering employment and paying taxes, being a primary care for my family. These are a few of the things I can do as a 16-year-old living in Western Europe. But despite this, I remain excluded and unheard in formal policy making and in the elections that shape our society and ultimately my future. This is not just the case for me, but for the millions of young people all around the world. Welcome, adjudicators and fellow competitors. My name is Shauna Walsh, and I believe that Europe is not listening to its young people. As the right to vote is restricted to those only over the age of 18, it means that young people's views and opinions are not heard or represented by the politicians that are elected. By lowering the voting age, it would give young people a greater input into the decisions and actions that directly impact them, their communities, and their futures. Young people would be listened to so much more because their voice and vote would matter to politicians. By doing this, we would not only create a more vibrant, democratic European society, but also be investing in our future. The EU has made efforts to include young people more in certain decisions and discussions. However, this effort seems tokenized and insincere. A prime example of this was in March 2020, when Greta Thunberg spoke in Brussels to MEPs, as the EU unveiled a proposed law, which, if passed, would make it a legal requirement for the EU to be carbon neutral by 2050. In response, Thunberg said, "If your house was on fire, you would not wait a few more years to start putting it out." And yet that is what the Commission is proposing today. Despite her avid opposition to the proposed law, it was still passed. Thunberg was reduced to yet another young European citizen whose concerns were not listened to. This example highlights how youth involvement is a simple tick-the-box exercise for the EU. In conclusion, I believe Europe is not listening to its young people. I believe lowering the voting age will give young people the opportunity to speak and be heard. As Thunberg best put it, when your house is on fire, you do not wait a few years to start putting it out. Europe needs to listen to its young people before it's too late. Thank you.
Many thanks, Shauna. That was a very passionate plea to lower the voting age to ensure that youth involvement is more than a box tick exercise. Thanks again, Shauna. Next, we'll hear from Aoife O'Connor from the Europe Direct Centre in Waterford.
Our anxiety does not empty tomorrow of its sorrows, but only empties today of its strengths. This is a quote by a man named C.H. Spurgeon, who outlines the effects of anxiety and its hardships. Anxiety the youth of Europe and the world feel today for causes out of their grasp, problems we may try our hardest to solve, but with what help? My name is Aoife O'Connor. I am a 16-year-old transition year student in Waterford City, Ireland. Like many others my age, I can tend to feel anxious often, whether it's over my school studies, self-view, or relationships with others around me. These are normal, understandable things to feel worried about, and there are easy, accessible ways to ease the severity of these emotions. Europe. When I think of Europe, I think of three words, the first being opportunity. In Europe, there's a great opportunity for people struggling to move past mental health problems, solutions and help for people having hardships to do with mental health, especially anxiety, and empathy for those struggling. Europe takes pride in having therapy centres and helplines, though they are slim to none outside of office hours, to help these people, although waiting lists are never ending and there are gaps in services for our youth in comparison to the services for adults. But I want to ask, what help do Europe provide for young people struggling with problems that will affect their futures? In Ireland, 4 out of 10 teenagers have reported symptoms of depression and anxiety. The next word I think of is hope. Hope for new memories, new friendships, new cultures, and new laughs. Though hope has also been lost. To have friends be distraught that they have to give up a dream college course because Ireland's housing crisis has left them without 4 walls and a roof over their head only raises my anxiety so much higher. To have heard stories of college students camping outside their universities as they no longer can get accommodation, some sitting in their cars as they are much warmer there than in the homes they can't afford to heat. This only raises my anxiety even higher. That links into my next word, home. Europe and Ireland is a home that I love and a home I want to stay in, though I wonder, will I ever have to say goodbye? When my anxieties are not listened to and my pleas are not answered, it's a home I may have to flee. How could anyone feel at ease in today's world? The EU say that 2022 is the European Year of Youth, shining a light on the importance of European youth to build a better future, more sustainable, inclusive, beautiful, and peaceful. The voices of today are the leaders of the future who will eventually raise the children of the future. So it's vital that the young people of Europe are adhered to by the higher powers in the EU before it's too late and our future generation will end up emigrating outside of Europe. So when I'm asked, is Europe listening to its young people, I will answer no. No, they do not empathise enough with the panic of the rising cost of living. They do not welcome enough solutions when students are without accommodation in Ireland. They do not cater enough help for people crumbling under never-ending kitchen bills. In 20 years, when I can hopefully ask my children what 3 words they associate with Europe, I'll hope they reply with the special trio: opportunity, hope, and home. And when I quiz them on why, I want the answers to make me feel proud. I want them to have an opportunity, the opportunity to have a wanted voice in society. I want them to say hope, hope for a bright future that they have a say in. and I want them to say home, a home they love as much as I did, one that they are loved in, and one that they love too. When I think of Europe, I think of 3 words: one final chance.
Many thanks for this very well prepared speech, Aoife. You raised a number of very relevant issues. And with that, we conclude the category of 16 and under. We heard from 7 participants. 5 argued that Europe is listening to young people, and 2 argued that Europe is not listening to young people. But I think with young people like this, Europe would do very well to make sure they listen very carefully. Now we will move on to the second category, age 17 and over. We are going to hear from 6 different contestants. We'll start with the Europe Direct Centre in Blanchardstown, Oluwana Femi Fagbamiro.
My name is Oluwana Femi Fagbamiro, and I'm going to be talking to you today about how I think Europe does care for its youth and does listen to its youth. Now, post-COVID, we have seen that the rise of mental health has gone down. So while I was researching on this topic, I actually found out that the European Union has a program that is fighting against unpaid internships for the youth. And I think this takes a big step in showing us how they care for the youth. And they actually declared this year, 2022, as the Year of Youth. I also think that they listen to the youth, as we went on social media and we cried out for help for Ukraine, and they have committed billions of euros to going to help young Ukrainian refugees. I also want to mention a case which was very dear to my heart, of Denisa Honigova, and how she undertook an internship in Ireland, and it helped her know how to cope with her social anxiety. She went back to her home and had a lot of passion about going on internships, Erasmus, for example, and taking the time to go around and tell people how much it really helped her. I also have friends that went for Erasmus, and they've told me how it really helps them, and how Europe has made an opportunity for this has really helped them. Now, in the European Union, young people aged 15 to 29 make up a sixth of the population. This has been some of the most hardest economic effects to be done onto young people by the effects of the pandemic. And we are actually one of the first to either lose our jobs or see a drop in income. So the World Health Organization actually launched a new program for the European region. And I'll quote Dr. Klieg, who said, "It is clear that whether it is because of an unprecedented pandemic or a sudden humanitarian crisis, meeting people's mental health needs, especially those of children and young people, must be at the heart of any functioning health system. We look forward to working closely with all 53 countries in our region to make this a reality." This step by the World Health Organization lays a strong foundation for broader health and well-being for Europe. I'm part of the student union Trinity, and we see how mental health affects students, and the fact that they are doing this is really encouraging. So yes, I do think that Europe is listening to youth. Thank you for taking the time to listen to why I think so.
Many thanks for your presentation, Oluwana Femi. I like the mention of the young Ukrainian refugees and how passionately you spoke out against unpaid internships. Next, we'll go to the Europe Direct Centre in Letterkenny, where we'll hear from Leah Rose Davis.
Hello, my name is Leah Rose Davis from Skull World Buncrana, and I will be entering the 17 and over category. I will be discussing the topic, is Europe listening to its young people? I strongly believe that Europe are listening to its youth. So, who are European young people? According to the European Commission, young people are described as people between the ages of 15 and 29 years of age. As Pythagoras once stated, the beginning of every government starts with the education of our youth. I could not agree more with this statement, and I believe that Europe also believes in this statement, as they have made 2022 the European Year of Youth, which aims to engage, connect, empower and listen to its young people. So, how is Europe listening? Firstly, by establishing the European Youth Portal. This is a website where young people can have their input and their views heard at a European level. Secondly, Voice Your Vision was set up as a platform where young Europeans can record and input their personal messages on key issues of the European Union. The EU then analyses this data. This alone is a perfect example of how Europe is listening to its young people, but it is not the only one. Thirdly, the European Youth Parliament is another example and provides young people with a forum to express their opinions at a European level. Anyone can register and get involved, and my school alone has 2 members on it. As well as listening, Europe is involving its young people through organisations such as Europe Direct. They organise Europe-themed events to encourage debate and discussion on European issues, such as this very competition. There are many programmes and opportunities available to Irish students where they can be heard at European level. For example, Graduate.ie offers an opportunity to meet with our MEPs in Brussels and be heard. Finally, our MEPs listen to our youth by visiting schools and other youth organisations to hear their input on European issues. Mar a Déireann Seanachal, Máil na Oige agus Tuigfí. Praise the youth and they will flourish. I am happy to admit more needs to be done. However, the process has started, initiatives installed, funds granted, and Europe have actively listened and made changes based on the opinions of youth, so things can only go from good to better. To conclude, I strongly believe that Europe are listening to its young people. To what extent young people opt to get involved and have their voices heard is their decision. Thank you.
Many thanks for that, Leah. I think there were some very good examples there of how Europe is listening to young people, such as the Europe Youth Parliament. Next, we'll move on to the Europe Direct Centre in Portlaoise and hear from Claire Hendy.
To answer the question, is Europe listening to its young people? I've decided to speak about a topic that I feel deserves specific attention after decades of being ignored. My name is Claire Hendy, and today I will speak about how Europe isn't caring for, protecting, or respecting its LGBTQ youth. An extensive survey by Just Like Us found that 7 out of 10 LGBTQ young people have experienced suicidal thoughts, and transgender youth are proven to be even more likely to consider ending their lives. When I read this last fact, I wasn't surprised. Gender affirmation surgery gives transgender people a body that aligns with their gender, but although this is potentially a life-saving procedure, there are many barriers preventing access to it. Public insurance often doesn't cover the procedures, and many private insurance companies argue that they are cosmetic, putting gender affirmation surgery on the same level of importance as a rhinoplasty. This circles back to the high suicide rates in trans youths, as their own body denies everything that their mind tells them, and their governments refuse to offer an easy solution. LGBTQ youth in today's European society regularly hide their identity and live in isolation or even fear. Others face discrimination and violence by simply being themselves. A study by the European Agency for Fundamental Rights found that 67% of LGBTQ respondents hid the fact that they were LGBTQ while in school. 3 in 10 of all transgender youth said they were victims of violence or threats of violence, more than 3 times in the past year. 76% of gay or bisexual male young people reported fearing holding hands in public with a same-sex partner. Just last year, a gay 24-year-old man was murdered in Spain in a homophobic attack. This summer, a lesbian couple was violently assaulted in Dublin, less than 24 hours before the International Day against homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia. What is Europe doing to protect these young people? Why should they have to fear kissing their partner in public, dressing a certain way, or merely existing? To quote the simple but powerful words of trans actor Elliot Page, the world would be a whole lot better if we just made an effort to be less horrible to one another. What effort is Europe making? LGBTQ people have always been here. They have just been silenced, ignored, and persecuted for so long that these issues are still rampant today. The governments of Europe have the power to make change happen if they would only give LGBTQ people the attention they so badly deserve. After all the time they have waited and all of the people that they have lost along the way, Europe needs to finally prioritise this issue. Thank you for listening.
Many thanks, Claire. That was a very passionate speech addressing some issues and challenges faced by LGBTIQ plus young people, and I also hope that Europe will be able to solve them. Next, we'll go to the Europe Direct Centre in Ballinasloe, where we'll hear from Aoibhinn Curley.
Hello, my name is Aoibhinn, and today I'm incredibly excited to debate the motion, Is Europe Listening to its Young People? I'd like to provide some anecdotal information that supports my belief that Europe is not and has not been listening to its young people. When I discuss politics with my friends, there's an overwhelming consensus among my peers that we are overall powerless at both national and international levels. We do not feel we have any real tangible power to make meaningful changes in our world. This is of course incredibly frustrating to us young people. A 2016 study on average found over half of young Europeans aged between 15 and 24 describe themselves as either moderately or strongly interested in politics, showing we do deeply care about politics. If young people are truly listened to by Europe, then the issues concerning them would be tackled. We see the lack of political power young people have when we discuss what issues are dealt with. Research conducted by YSI found that 47% of Irish people aged 16 to 21 believe that climate change is the biggest issue to our generation. If Europe and Ireland were listening, climate change would be a main priority. However, Ireland has continuously failed to meet its climate goals. In 2018, then Taoiseach Leo Varadkar admitted Ireland is nowhere near close to meeting its climate goals. Europe overall was found to have been behind 12% of global carbon emissions, despite only accounting for 10% of the global world population. Additionally, data gathered from the EU itself found that 70% of its energy originates from fossil fuels. If Europe is truly listening to its youth, why are they not solving the issue that we care most about? Why are they failing to address what is seen as the defining struggle of our generation? I would now like to point out that my belief that young people are not represented by Europe is a shared one. I provided some anecdotal information before, but there are statistics to back this up. A Eurobarometer opinion poll from 2016 found that 57% of young people in the EU felt socially excluded. In economically struggling countries, such as Greece, the number is 93%. 93% of young people in Greece felt that there was no place for them in the EU. Our youth feel abandoned and disenfranchised by a political system that too often forgets about them. In my speech, I have highlighted how Europe currently is not taking on the voices and concerns of its young people. However, this can and is changing. In recent years, the EU has introduced a strategy to increase young people's political participation. This is a positive indication for the future. I hope that would work. Someday we will achieve a Europe that values and listens to the input of all its citizens, including its youth.
Many thanks, Aoibhinn. I think you shared some very compelling examples of how young people can feel powerless, and you cited the delay to addressing climate change as a clear example of this. We'll move on now to the Europe Direct Centre in Sligo and hear from Anushka Pathak.
Hello, esteemed listeners and adjudicators. My name is Anushka Pathak, and I will be speaking to you on the motion, Is Europe listening to its young people today? Personally, I'm very sorry to say that I do not believe that this is the case. However, I do believe that this motion is particularly apt in 2022, as this year has been declared the European Year of Youth. This is an EU initiative that aims to shine a light on youth in order to allow them to build a better future, one that is greener, more inclusive, and of course more digital. While I do ardently believe that this is an admirable concept, I do also feel that it must be noted that overall there is a blatant disregard of the interest of youth in politics. Legions of young people have reported that they feel ignored by governments and political systems. But what is the reason for this? Is it that they're not making an effort to have their voices heard? This is not the case. Through pan-European, even global initiatives like Fridays for Future, young people have brought their potent passion for political issues like climate change to the forefront in a way that begs to not be ignored. Is it that young people aren't engaging with politics? When asked whether he felt young people are ignored by mainstream politics, Professor Bobby Duffy of Public Policy and the Director of Policy Institute at King's College London spoke about a theory called democratic deficit. A theory that says, basically, that because young people supposedly vote less in elections, their vote is worth less to politicians, which is again simply not the case. In the 2019 European Parliament elections, it was those in the under 25 and 25 to 39 age brackets that had the highest voter turnouts. Let me pose you a question. If all the signs point towards young people actively engaging in politics and taking a vested interest, why aren't their voices being heard? Why do they feel underrepresented in mainstream politics? Honoured listeners, I fear the truth is this. Europe does not want to listen to its young people. People are reticent and reluctant to admit or acknowledge that, for all their idealism and inexperience, the young of Europe are truly innovative too. However, all is not lost in that regard. Through initiatives like Comhairle na nÓg and Dáil na nÓg, young people have been enabled to make an impact in their own way. After all, it was with the Comhairle na nÓg campaign for reduced transport costs that led to a 50% reduction in student leap card travel fares. Youth engagement truly is the future for Sligo, for Ireland and for Europe. After all, Mara Gera an Seanachal, or as the saying goes, Mullen Oaga agus Chucky She. Praise the youth and they will flourish. Thank you so much.
Many thanks, Anushka. I think your presentation included some very clear examples of how we could listen better to young people. Now, finally, with our final contestant, we will move on to the Europe Direct Centre in Waterford and hear from Aidan Keogh.
The European Union hears the voice of its young people, but they do not listen. Time and time again, we the future of Europe have begged for change and protested to achieve acknowledgement, of which all efforts have fallen on deaf ears. These failures were highlighted in the EU's battle with climate change and how the countries in the EU dealt with Ukrainian refugees. We are seen to be heard, seen to be acknowledged, but in the end our efforts come to no avail. So why is the EU failing its young people? Do European leaders want to be perceived as do-gooders when really a much different plan is unfolding? And what can Europe do to engage more with young people? Well, the first question is a difficult one. There are many contributing factors to the EU's lack of communication and action. The EU, as member states, do organise meetings targeted at young people, and we are given a chance to voice our concerns. But in most, if not all cases, there is no further action. There's no genuine follow-up, and therefore there is no serious change. In retrospect, the governments of the EU have been very busy dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, the hysteria of the war in Ukraine, and the overwhelming energy crisis. Amongst all these global challenges, the voice of the youth is drowned out. We have fallen on the priority list, and the effects are devastating. The evidence of such is all around us. For instance, upon return to college this year, thousands of Irish students found it near impossible to secure accommodation. And if they did, it was an extortionate expense. Of course, the accommodation was filled by the Ukrainian refugees, a valiant effort by the government. But did the government plan for this commitment? Did the government consult students or ensure accommodations would be available? No, they did not. Instead, they refused to acknowledge their fault. In fact, Micheál Martin said verbatim, "We're acutely aware of it and there are no easy answers. Easy answers or not, these answers are required." There was no follow-up to the statement. These governments are too hard-pressed, obliging to EU policies that do not respect the position of the country at that exact time. We, as young people, are constantly advised to live within our means. Perhaps it is time the EU follows such a policy themselves, instead of tackling problems outside their control and focus more on internal development. So what can the EU do about this? The youth of Europe are a bank of ideas. I suggest a Department of Youth should be established in each EU member state, similar to the Department of Finance, Health, etc. A department designed to engage with young people via schools and social media. A specific Minister of Youth would be elected to represent the interests of young people. This would create a direct line for us to access and cooperate with our governments. Similarly, the EU would engage seriously with these departments, and that's when we will begin to see serious change. This would ensure that there is constant representation of the youth of Europe and would implement our interests into all decisions made by the government. Lastly, it is ironic that this project, addressing the EU's engagement with young people, will itself come to no avail, whether I win or not. After this competition, this video will probably be lost, and so too will all the videos sent in. The ideas will be acknowledged, but not applied. This vicious cycle will continue if the youth are not heard and our ideas are lost.
Many thanks for your speech, Aidan. It was very interesting to hear you cite the example of the accommodation crisis for college students as an example of the lack of consultation with young people. So this concludes the 6 candidates in the age category 17 and over. Now we'll move on to hear a video from one of our MEPs.
Hello to all of you at the Soapbox competition. It's so inspiring to know that young people are making their voices heard across Ireland. I'd like to begin by expressing my gratitude to Europe Direct and the LGMA for organising this event. Young people have been central to our recent social movements, and we need great public speakers like yourselves to follow in those footsteps. After all, it is your future that's at stake. In 10 years' time, when many of you will be thinking about having children of your own, the world will be a remarkably different place. China, a country which is totally mysterious to many of your parents, may be the largest economy in the world. The climate emergency will generate massive social transformation, either through the transition to renewables or through the devastating effects of global warming. More novel pandemics like the coronavirus and monkeypox will have emerged. So it's no small task ahead of you. But that's why it's crucial that you keep using your voice once this competition is over. If you're watching this video, you have all the tools you need to make a difference. Write to your MEPs, join a political party, take action on the issues that matter to you. If young people were as well represented in the corridors of power as corporate lobbyists, the world would be a much better place. Many of you will be familiar with the European Youth Event, during which young people from across Europe gather in Strasbourg to share their ideas for Europe's future. Even if you don't go yourself, think about what you would say to those in power if you had the chance. It won't be long before the adults in the room are looking to you for answers. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Grace O'Sullivan and I'm delighted to be talking to you today in recognition of your efforts which have seen you progress to the finals of the Soapbox annual competition, organised by the Europe Direct Information Centres with the local government agency. It is an important opportunity to give voice to the views of young people. As you know, I am a member of the European Parliament representing the constituency of Ireland South. As an MEP, I worked throughout the 12th county constituency, at home as well as in Brussels and on occasion here in Strasbourg. This European Year of Youth may be drawing to a close, but I would say that every year is a year of youth when it comes to demanding that those in positions of power urgently increase the scale of their ambition and action when it comes to addressing the climate and biodiversity crisis. We have seen the most extraordinary leadership from young people, which has gained momentum over the past few years. Some 6 years ago, we saw the climate strikes in the US, stemming from activism of young people against the Dakota Access Pipeline at Standing Rock. And then the powerful global Fridays for Future movement sparked by Greta Thunberg. There are many paths open to you all to engage with the environmental issues and challenges. When I was 20 years of age, I joined Greenpeace, beginning a lifelong activism which ranged from years on Greenpeace ships, including the Rainbow Warrior, to scaling the bow of a Russian nuclear warship. While my work is now within the political structures of the European Union, I still consider myself primarily an environmental activist. You are the agents of change, and whether you choose to affect that change through roles in science and innovation, by being educators, by engaging in environmental activism, or participation in political organisations and structures, you will shape the conversation and decisions with that sharp clarity and truth that young people bring to the table. While the challenges can sometimes feel overwhelming, I urge you to believe in the power of your voice, both in these national soapbox finals and more broadly in your own lives. Thank you.
Chris McManus, MEP here, speaking from the European Parliament in Brussels. First off, I wish to thank the organisers of this year's Soapbox for their invitation to say a few words for the grand final. And congratulations to all of you for making it this far. It's an outstanding achievement and each one of you should be proud. The topic of this year's Soapbox Is Europe listening to its young people? Is a very appropriate topic, given that 2022 is the European Year of Youth. This gives us all the opportunity to celebrate our young people and the contributions they make to our communities and societies. The Year of Youth is also an opportunity for you, our young people, to tell us legislators what you need, particularly in a post-COVID world, as COVID was a global event that disproportionately impacted young people. You've sacrificed a great deal to keep all of our communities safe, and that's why I believe our youth ought to be celebrated for the huge efforts you've contributed to helping us reach where we are today. For my part as an MEP, we have seen the European Parliament take positions in passing reports recognising the impact of the pandemic on young people in the European Union, particularly in the context of the closure of educational, cultural, youth and sports activities. Specific policies for youth are all well and good, but we must look at the type of society young people are growing up in and entering as adults. That means tackling serious issues such as housing, properly resourcing community facilities, decent pay, a living wage, mental health services accessible to all, and genuine action to combat climate change. I have no doubt that whilst we live in unusual times, we as a country are blessed with young people who are active, engaged and informed, with the energy, commitment and passion to help us meet the very real challenges we all face. To quote the Seanfocal, Mulla Noige agus Chucky Siad. Thank you all very much. Goramila Maya Give Galer.
While we were listening to the contestants in the 16 and under category and in the 17 and over category, the judges have been working hard to identify the winners. I'm now going to pass over to the chair of the judges, Paula Butler, to give an overview of the judges' deliberations.
Hello, my name is Paula Butler. I'm Assistant Chief Executive in the Local Government Management Agency with responsibility for local government strategy, research and communications, which also includes responsibility for the Library Development Unit. I'm absolutely thrilled to be chair of the judges panel for the 4th year in a row for this very exciting event. The Europe Direct National Soapbox final is always a highlight of the year for myself and the team in the Library Development Unit. I want to especially thank my colleague Maeve Hakeed and the rest of the Library Development team for making it happen again this year. The calibre of contestants in this year's final was once again very high. The passion and excellence in presentation skills that was demonstrated across both categories was extremely inspiring. The level of preparation and research that went into your entries was evident, and I have to say, you all made the job of the judges very challenging, so well done to you all. So I want to share with you the criteria that the judges use in coming to the decision on the winners. As you know, there are 2 categories of contestants for the national final, 16 and under and 17 and over. Each contestant was assessed on the basis of 4 criteria. Number 1 is the content and evidence of preparation, including the knowledge of the subject. Number 2 is the presentation and delivery, and this is including adherence to time limits. Number 3 is structure and clarity. And number 4 is the overall effectiveness and impact of presentation based on the level of conviction, personal application, enthusiasm, or other strength of feeling, which is suggested by the soapbox format. Each criterion was given equal weight and each contestant was marked out of 25 for each criteria, the total assessment then combining to a maximum score of 100. So we've selected 2 winners, 1 from each category and 1 highly commended runner-up from each category. Whilst the scores were very tight in both categories, I am delighted to say that the judges chose the winners by unanimous decision. So without further ado, I'd like to announce the candidates who received the highly commended runner-up positions. So in the 16 and under category, the highly commended runner-up is Hannah Murphy. And in 17 and over category, the highly commended runner-up is Anushka Pathak. Well done to you both. Now, for the exciting part, I am very pleased to announce the winners of the 2022 National Europe Direct Soapbox final as follows. In the 16 and under category, the winner is Quiva Park Well done, Quiva. And in the 17 and over category, the winner is Leah Rose David. Well done, Leah Rose. So massive congratulations to you both and well done to all of the candidates today. Now, back over to you, Grace.
Many thanks, Paula, for sharing the judges' deliberations so clearly and for announcing the winners and the highly commended contestants. The Europe Direct Centres will be in touch with the winners and the highly commended contestants regarding the prizes in due course. On behalf of the European Commission representation in Ireland, I would like to thank the Europe Direct Information Centres for organising this year's Soapbox, the regional competition and today's national competition, and a big thanks to all the contestants, their teachers and their families for supporting them in producing such excellent videos, which we've all enjoyed today. I hope to see you all again next year. Thank you.